Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ASIAL's virtual industry briefing. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Robert Seth, and I'm the convener for Western Australia. To commence our presentation, I would like to welcome John Galil, ASIAL's president.
Good morning and welcome to this ASIAL industry briefing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Galil and I'm the recently elected ASIAL president. I've served on the board since 2014 and as the vice president since 2016. On behalf of the entire ASIAL board, I'd like to welcome you to this industry briefing. Over the next couple of minutes, I'd like to share with you a bit about our core themes and some of our strategies. So firstly, our core themes. At ASIAL, we have two main core themes. One is a safe and secure Australia. And the second, together, each achieves more. These two core themes will central around every discussion that we have and every publication that we do. Because we really want to promote what the private security industry is doing, and we're doing some really great stuff out there to keep our communities safe and to keep our country safe. And together, each achieves more. If you think about it, in the industry, there's over 150,000 licensed security personnel. We employ with our support staff about 180,000 people, and we contribute about $10 billion to the economy. We're much larger than the police force, we're much larger than the Australian Defence Force, and we're much larger than those two combined. That gives us a strong voice, and it gives us a strong foot forward into telling the media and telling the government what we do to keep our great nation safe. We want to promote that, we want to get the message out, and we want to get it out very strongly. Some of our strategies that you'll see, we're going to really have some really great strategies being executed over the next 12 months. First and foremost is a research paper called Security 2025. This is a research paper, the first of its kind. It's going to tell you about the industry, where we are today, where we'll be in 5 years' time, and more importantly, how every member can get to that point in 5 years' time, so we're not falling behind. We have some other great strategies. We really want to promote women in security and how we can get more females into the industry. We want to promote careers in the industry. There's a lot of great people out there, a lot of talented people that have spent their entire working career in the industry. We want to promote that, and we want to promote others to come into the industry through training, through promotions to universities and TAFEs, and through other means. You're going to see some really, really good stuff over the next 12 months. I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can contact me through LinkedIn or through ASIAL. Hopefully I can meet everyone after all these lockdowns. So thank you and enjoy this industry briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your presentation, and congratulations on your recent appointment. I would like to now introduce Jack Alp and Julian Cartwright. They're from Guardhouse, our sponsors for this virtual briefing.
Good morning, everyone. We're delighted to be the breakfast sponsor for another ASIAL event. We've put a QR code at the bottom of each page so you guys can download a copy of our brochure at any time. For those who don't know us, my name is Jack. I also have Julian with me, and we're both co-founders of Guardhouse. We wanted to give you a little bit of an update today on where we're at as a business and some of the exciting features that we've got coming up. We launched Guardhouse in 2018, and in that time we've now partnered with 112 companies nationally who are publishing over 90,000 shifts a week and collectively have over 38,000 staff. Here's some of our partnered clients.
Our customers love our best-in-class features and workflow on employee scheduling, time and attendance, payroll and invoicing, and instant reporting, along with GPS mobile time clock, automated license checks, offered shifts, skill matching, and our rich customer portal functionality. This results in the benefits of a 62% reduction in time to build rosters and communicate shifts to staff, a 100% reduction in the time it takes to run license checks manually, a 56% reduction in payroll processing time, and a 48% reduction in invoicing generation and distribution time. The companies that choose Guardhouse see an average of 741% return on investment. We've plenty of life left in the year, and our development team are working hard to deliver some exciting functionality before the end of 2021. we'll be releasing automated compliance management, labour partner live rosters, pre-shift calls and on-shift welfare checks, and customer portal shift requests.
We're offering those who attended the breakfast this morning a 20% discount on their first year's subscription, and all our contact details are in the QR code when you scan it. Thank you, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you, Jack and Julian. Your offering and support of our industry is certainly appreciated. I would now like to introduce Cara Pritchard and Leanne Rayner of MAS National to present on technical training funding.
Hi, my name's Cara Pritchard and I'm from MAS National in South Australia, and today I'm joined by my lovely colleague Leanne Rayner, who's from our Victorian team. We're going to talk all things apprenticeships and traineeships, but we're also going to share with you some really exciting news on a subsidy called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy. Over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Cara. So who are MAS National and who are we? MAS National is an Australian apprenticeship support network provider, which is a mouthful. We've been delivering apprenticeship support services for 23 years, and that includes promoting training and employment pathways. So our organisation works to support industry through workforce development, and we support schools and community groups, job seekers, career changers and school leavers into meaningful employment. So the most common question we get, Cara, as you know, is what is an apprenticeship or a traineeship? So an Australian apprenticeship, which is a common phrase, it's an Australian apprenticeship is an apprenticeship or traineeship, which is a learning pathway that combines paid on-the-job training with formal study through a registered training organisation. So basically, earn as you learn. By completing an apprenticeship or traineeship, the learner gains a nationally recognised qualification as well.
You're absolutely right, Leanne. We do get asked that question all the time. And the good news is we are here to work with you to help you understand which apprenticeships and traineeships are actually available in your sector. So what are the benefits of apprenticeships and traineeships? Well, from the employer's point of view, there is funding that's available, and that is funding that we're going to go into a bit more detail about in this recording. But there is also state government initiatives that will be specific to your business. So we can actually work with you to help you understand those. That could be things like payroll tax and other incentives that are happening in particular states. It also leads to improved productivity. So if a staff member has been trained properly, they are able to undertake their work, and you will see benefits of that training in their daily work. It also leads to increased staff retention, and trained employees quite often meet legislative requirements of industry. So lots of different industries will have certain requirements where training has to be done to a certain level, and you can actually attain those, meet those levels by undertaking apprenticeships or traineeships. There are also benefits for both the apprentice or trainee. They can gain relevant training for their job role. As Leanne mentioned earlier, they achieve a nationally recognised qualification. They earn while they learn, and it does increase their loyalty because they can feel that they're being invested in as part of your business.
Absolutely, Cara. So funding, and this is one of our other common questions that we receive and something that we love to talk about. So funding for trainees and apprentices, what incentives are available to those who undertake a traineeship or an apprenticeship? So potential standard incentives. So these are the incentives that have been around all the time or have been around for years. Obviously, there's eligibility criteria, but the basics are that there's a commencement incentive, which is paid at the 6-month point, and that's around $1,500. The completion incentive, which is paid on successful completion of the traineeship or apprenticeship, which is $2,500. And as you mentioned before, Cara, there's also extra state funding as well. But in terms of the federal funding, there's also extra funding available for employers who take on school-based apprentices or trainees, or for those undertaking a qualification that's on the National Skills Shortage list. And that could also be up to an additional $4,000. So you could have your $4,000 commencement and completion and an additional $4,000 for somebody undertaking an NSNL qualification for supporting adult apprentices as well. So anyone over 21. So that's an extra incentive also.
And we can work with you to help you understand which qualifications are on that National Skills Needs list, because there are some qualifications that are relevant to your industry there. Absolutely. Now, without further ado, a bit of information around the boosting apprenticeship commencements. So as we all know, COVID has continued to be a challenge here in Australia, and obviously a challenge in some of the states that we work in at the moment. So out of that, the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements Wage Subsidy was generated, and it is a subsidy that provides extra support to employers who engage new apprentices and trainees, and the support is in the form of a 12-month wage subsidy capped at $28,000 per eligible apprentice or trainee. So that it is actually per, so you could potentially take on 10 new apprentices or trainees and actually attract the subsidy for all of them. It is available to all new workers who meet primary eligibility, and we'll take you through a bit of information on that as we go through this slideshow. It also is available to existing workers who are on the trades list, and again, we'll work with you so you understand who that is specifically, or existing workers who have transitioned from casual to part-time or full-time, or from part-time to full-time to undertake the apprenticeship or traineeship. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but we will actually work through with you individually to help you understand who that is that falls into those categories. So
yeah, you're right,
to you,
Cara.
Leanne.
Thanks. And I think in addition to that, I mean, this COVID incentive or the Boosting Apprenticeships Commencement Wage Subsidy is all about getting people into work or creating more permanent positions. So converting those people from casual into permanent part-time or permanent full-time positions. So
absolutely, the government are happy to support the fact that employers are actually able to provide those opportunities to the individuals, and then in return the government want to support them through that process.
Agreed. So the wage subsidy, and am I eligible, which is a common question. What is that primary eligibility that you spoke about before? So for an employer to be eligible for the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy, the apprentice or trainee must be undertaking a Certificate 2 or higher qualification, which, as you mentioned, we can go through in more detail. And they must meet that primary eligibility. So they've either got to be a citizen, an Australian citizen or permanent resident, or a New Zealand passport holder who's been in the country for 6 months or longer. They must have appropriate employment and training arrangements that we mentioned before. And if they're an existing worker, they must meet that existing worker criteria that we mentioned just on the earlier slide. They also need to have a training contract that's formally approved by the state training authority in their state, but that's the part that we assist with. So we get that training contract done, and once it's submitted and approved, then you're hunky-dory.
So really, we're here to support you through that whole process. Now, what is classified as a new worker? So in the government's eyes for this particular program, a new worker is someone who's worked for the business less than 3 months full-time or less than 12 months part-time or casual. So there is a fairly large window there, and we can sit down with you and look at your full workforce development piece and work out who those new workers are and make sure that there is an opportunity to maximise the subsidy for them. An existing worker is someone who's been with the current employer for more than 3 months full-time or more than 12 months part-time. But as we mentioned before, there are opportunities to transition people from casual to part-time or full-time, or from part-time to full-time. And what kind of qualifications can be done through an apprenticeship or traineeship? Well, you can actually undertake a Certificate 2 through to advanced diploma qualifications. And I think a lot of the time people think apprenticeships and traineeships are entry-level qualifications and qualifications that aren't at that higher level, but there are so many different, I think it's over 500 qualifications that are available. So we can work through that with you. And in your industry, there are potential qualifications in the ICT, security, the cabling. There are also business certificates, because there are people who would be working in the offices or working in the back end to support you. And there are also leadership qualifications that are available. So we haven't actually listed all of the qualifications because there are so many of them, but we can work with you individually to work out what the appropriate qualification is for your business.
Yeah, absolutely right, Cara. And I think it's important to note that when we talk about apprenticeships and traineeships, everyone thinks about those traditional trade apprenticeships that are available, and everybody knows those trades, but it equally applies to traineeships, where it could be basically any job that you think of, there could be a traineeship connected to that.
Absolutely.
So is my business eligible for the Boosting Apprenticeships Commencement, or I'm going to call it back from now on? It's a mouthful.
Much easier.
Yeah, all businesses are eligible regardless of their size, income or geographic location. To be eligible, you need to engage an Australian apprentice or trainee anytime between the 5th of October 2020, so last year, and the 31st of March 2022. So that 12 months starts whenever your start date of your traineeship or apprenticeship commences. And your Australian apprentice or trainee needs to be undertaking that certificate 2 or higher qualification and have a training contract that's fully approved or formally approved by the relevant state training authority. And as Cara mentioned before, we'll support you through this whole process. So if you have somebody that you're just not sure about whether they're eligible or not, or you've got a whole group of people, whether you're not sure or you're wanting to take someone on, we'll actually work with you to give you some sort of indication of what you may be eligible for.
So I guess this is a pretty important one. How much is the subsidy? Well, as we mentioned earlier, it is up to $28,000. So the wage subsidy is 50% of the Australian apprentice or trainee's gross wage paid, capped at $7,000 a quarter. So there'll be 4 different quarters, and in each of them, there is up to the $7,000 that can be claimed back. The wage subsidy is available for wages paid in a 12-month period from the commencement date, which Leanne alluded to earlier. When will the payments be made? A very common question we get asked. So as I said, they are paid quarterly in arrears, and they are directly into the employer's nominated bank account. So MAS do administer this process. We send out a claim form. We ask you to fill out the claim form and attach the wage evidence for that period of time. And then we go through and pay the claim, which I think I've just answered my next question before I even got to it. Over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Cara. And just something to remember is that this boosting apprenticeship commencement wage subsidy is in addition to those standard incentives that we mentioned before. So it could be $28,000 wage subsidy plus the $4,000 standard incentives and plus any extra incentives that may be available through the federal government, plus any state government incentives that might be available as well. So are there any specific exclusions for back? So an employer will not be paid back or the boosting apprenticeships commencement wage subsidy where the employer is receiving any other form of Australian government wage subsidy or equivalent for that apprentice or trainee, or that the Australian apprentice or trainee is undertaking a qualification that they've already done before, basically. So even if it's an upgrade of the same qualification, they won't be able to attract the back. So long as they're doing something new, that's all fine. And then what if your apprentice or trainee cancels or suspends through the claim period? That's fine. All you need to do is let us know, and you get paid up until that date where they've cancelled. Or if they're suspended, you can pick up that payment again once they're back and working with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Leanne. Well, that brings us to the end and really what's next. So our team, as we've mentioned throughout the entire recording, we're here to support you through the process. We have staff members all across Australia who are out in their cars, available to pop into your business and sit down with you and learn about your business and learn about what your needs are, and then work out what the best workforce development plan is for you that aligns to apprenticeships and traineeships, so you're able to maximise the opportunities that are available. You'll see on the next slide mine and Leanne's details. You're more than welcome to contact us directly. We can link you with the appropriate people, and we will be online to answer your questions. So we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you, Cara and Leanne. As an industry, we need to get our heads around funding options and how we can use these options for the benefit of all. I'd like to introduce Chris Delaney. Chris is ASIAL's Industrial Relations Advisor, and he's going to provide us with IR industry update.
Good morning, my name is Chris Delaney. I'm ASIAL's Workplace Relations Advisor. It's hard to talk about the issues faced by employees over the last 12 months or so without using all of the cliches that are around the place. Suffice to say, these have been very challenging times. There's a lot happening in the workplace relations landscape, but today I only want to concentrate on 2 of the burning issues affecting employers in the security industry: mandatory vaccination and casual employment changes. The first question that we seem to be getting, and the major question from employers, is can I direct an employee to be vaccinated against COVID-19? The short answer to that question is yes. but with a caveat, unfortunately. Essentially, you can give an employee any direction you want to give, but the employee can refuse that direction if it is unlawful or unreasonable. And in the context of COVID-19 pandemic and vaccinations, the criteria for determining lawful and unreasonable or lawful and reasonable will be, in all probability, in one of two areas. Either government orders, public health orders, usually issued by the state, or work health and safety issues, specifically Section 19 of the Work Health and Safety Act, Commonwealth, which has in most states and territories, with the exception of Western Australia, harmonised legislation. By and large, the federal government has sidestepped the problem of vaccination or mandatory vaccination. Some public health orders have been directed with respect to nursing homes, aged care, airline workers, hotel quarantine workers, but not overall security workers. State governments have, in some limited instances, issued public health orders restricting unvaccinated workers from entering or leaving local government areas of concern to attend work, or only allowing authorised workers who have had at least one vaccination to work in authorised workplaces. So in only very limited circumstances will employers have the right to direct employees to have a COVID-19 vaccination, or even the flu vaccination for that matter. So we then come to the Work Health and Safety Act, and Section 19 of the Work Health and Safety Act specifically gives the employer the responsibility to have a safe workplace, have a safe system of work, eliminate risk. Now, to reach the point where an employer could be satisfied that a direction to vaccinate would be lawful and reasonable, it would be necessary to conduct a risk assessment of the work, the environment in which the work is performed, and the available PPE and risk mitigation factors. The Fair Work Ombudsman has provided a worthwhile profile of what might be the 4 tiers of risk, and they go tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tier 1, where there is a very high risk of being infected with coronavirus, for instance, in hotel quarantine, border control, and so on. Tier 2 would be where employees work in close contact with people who are particularly vulnerable to the health impacts of coronavirus. For example, employees working in healthcare or aged care. Tier 3 would be where people are likely to come in contact with large numbers of the general public in the normal course of their employment. Shopping centres, stores where they're providing essential goods and services, and those sorts of places. And tier 4 would be where there's minimal face-to-face interaction as part of the normal employment day, and that might be working from home. So using that as a guide to help you, if you choose to conduct a risk assessment to determine whether or not you're going to give a lawful or reasonable direction, you should be looking at those first 2 tiers. Tier 1 work and Tier 2 work. And you can go to the Fair Work Ombudsman's website to have a look at that. Or you can call me and we can have a discussion about how you might go about determining whether or not your instruction would be lawful and reasonable in the circumstances. But one very important thing to remember is that with all of this, you should be communicating with your employees and strongly encouraging everyone to get vaccinated when it becomes available to them. You should also be telling employees about the issues that concern you, your business, and what's happening in your organisation. So consultation is very important. And you will come across employees who don't want to get tested. And that's going to be an issue that may take you into the area of disciplinary action, perhaps even termination of employment. But before you make a decision to direct the employee to be vaccinated, remember, you should carefully consider the grounds on which you will rely for that direction. Does the employee work with people who would be vulnerable to severe health consequences? Does the employee work in a high-risk area? Is the vaccination essential for the performance of the work? Is there a genuine reason why the employee refuses to have the vaccination? How will the refusal affect the work, health and safety and responsibilities of the employer? And are there opportunities to redeploy the employee to alleviate those safety issues? You may be able to dismiss an employee for refusing to have a vaccination in very, very limited circumstances. But I would suggest that you wouldn't want to be the first one to do it. Leave it to one of the larger organisations. It'll end up being a case before either the federal court on discrimination grounds or the Fair Work Commission as an unfair dismissal. It's not worth the trouble. Talk to us before you do anything. Now, the second issue relates to casualisation of the workforce and the changes that have occurred as a result of the changes to the Fair Work Act and changes arising out of the High Court decision in the WorkPac versus Rosato case. Now, very simply stated, in WorkPac versus Rosato, lower courts provided the opportunity for an employee to have the 25% casual loading as well as accruing sick leave and annual leave under certain circumstances. The High Court has overturned that, and the federal government has made changes to the Fair Work Act to stop that double dip, what was called a double dip, the 25% loading and the accrual of sick leave and annual leave. But having made those changes, the Fair Work Commission now has to change modern awards to reflect the definition of a casual, what protections there are for employers against double dipping and so on. And that is taking place as we speak and will be happening by the end of September. So the things that you need to know are these. The new legislation regarding casuals commenced on the 27th of March 2021 and provide a definition for casuals in the new Fair Work Act. And that goes into the National Employment Standards. It provides a protection for employers against double dipping claims by casuals who claim that they've been misclassified or entitled to permanent employment entitlements. It provides the requirement for employers to give each casual a copy of the new Casual Employment Information Statement. And it provides an express obligation for employers to offer eligible casuals conversion to permanent employment while allowing eligible casual employees to make requests to convert to permanent employment as well. Now, the new legislation defines a casual in terms of what the contract says, not exactly what happens. So if somebody is offered a contract of employment on the basis that there is no firm advance commitment to continuing or indefinite work, and that person accepts the offer, the person is a casual. This means that the determination of whether a person is a casual employee or not will occur at the point of offer and acceptance of employment. And it's very important because that means you really need a contract of employment with written clauses that confirm that there is no firm commitment to continuing employment, no firm commitment to the number of hours or the number of days that an employee may be engaged for. In the event that a casual is in receipt of a 25% casual loading, and it's determined by a court that they're a permanent employee, then the 25% loading can be set off against paid annual leave, paid personal leave, paid compassionate leave, payment for absences on a public holiday, payment in lieu of notice of termination, and redundancy pay. Now, if you have a casual who has been full-time for 12 months and at least in the last 6 months has worked regularly and systematically, as an employer, you are duty-bound to offer them permanent full-time or permanent part-time work based on the number of hours that they've worked in that 6-month period. Now, if the employee rejects that, then fine, they go back to being a casual, and you've got to do this in writing so you can confirm it. If the employee accepts it, it'll be on the basis of whatever those regular days and regular hours have been. Now, you can not make the offer, or you can reject a request, provided there are reasonable grounds to do so. And those reasonable grounds will include whether or not you're going to be able to provide that continuing type of work based on what's happened in that previous 6 months. So if you're losing a contract, if things would change, if there will be irregularity in the work, then you've got a reason to reject an application for permanency, casual conversion to permanency or permanent part-time. Look, that's a brief overview of what's happening in those areas. What you have to do by the 27th of September is make those offers of employment to casuals, and you really need to be careful about that. If you have any questions about that, you can contact me, chris@asiel.com.au or ir@asiel.com.au, and I'll be able to answer any of your questions and help you get set up for either mandatory vaccination or issues surrounding the COVID-19 restrictions that might exist in your state or territory, or casualisation, and any other issue that you've got in your workplace: unfair dismissals, rates of pay and conditions, interpretation of awards, and so on. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, for your industry advice and member support. It is certainly valued. I would now like to introduce Dr. Gav Schneider. Dr. Schneider from the Australian Security Research Centre, who will provide an update on ASIO's Security 2025 initiative.
Hopefully by now, many of you are familiar with me, and if not, I'm Dr. Gabriel Schneider. I'm the CEO of the Risk to Solution Group, but I'm also the project lead for ASIO's 2025 Horizons project, which we are running through the Australian Security Research Centre. Myself and my colleague, Dr. Paul Johnston, have been working on this project since late last year, and it is almost at the point where you'll be receiving the project report and the summary to show you all the hard work and outcomes that we've achieved through the project. I think the challenge with a project like this is we're obviously trying to benchmark where the industry is at the moment, and then we're also trying to forecast where the industry is likely to be in 2025, or roughly 4 years from now. When the report comes out, for those of you who are academically inclined and want a lot of information, there is a lot of information obtained and available in the report, but we will also have an executive summary which covers the key high points, and a summary report which will make it a bit shorter and easier for those of you who don't like to read through all the detail. In essence, what we're going to be talking about is why is the industry so important? And our research showed us indicatively that first and foremost, it's important because of the economic contribution, flexibility and agility, our force multiplier capability. We're also a business enabler. For example, the events industry can't hold events without crowd controllers. And also we play a very critical role in national security and supporting national security. We also then ran a robust assessment of where the industry is now, because obviously if we don't know where we are, it's really hard to figure out where we want to be and how we're going to get there. To do that, we ran a series of research activities and put together a basic SWOT analysis, where we looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to the industry as a whole. These will be listed in the report, but just to give you an idea, some of the strengths that we have is our agility, our ability to be client and customer centric. We often are very innovative and look at solving problems in new and unique ways. And we also are a scalable workforce, as our COVID deployments showed us. We do have weaknesses, same as any other sector. And sometimes these are things like unrealistic client expectations. sometimes ineffective compliance enforcement, lack of a national regulatory structure, etc. There are many opportunities for us, okay, and those opportunities include things like adopting and integrating technology, okay, enhancing our frontline security awareness skills, and building on the capabilities of our already robust footprint. Needless to say, there are threats that will shape the industry, and many of these will be no surprise to those of you who've been in the industry for a while. Obviously, things like terrorism, cybercrime, activism, etc., form internal threats, but there are also key trends that we need to take into account. We've identified some broad categories of trends, but we've also identified some mega trends, things that are coming and happening overseas, which without doubt will affect our industry. And the mega trends include aspects such as increase in cybersecurity, touchless and frictionless solutions, increases in the capabilities of facial recognition, etc. And there's about 10 of those mega trends that we'll talk about. And we will then focus a little bit on some of the global issues, challenges, and opportunities that will shape the direction of where we're going. And these are integrating aspects of the SWOT analysis together with the mega trends and looking at what we can do to capitalize on what's happening around us. We also then create a picture of what good will look like. And I think this part is really important. Many of you who've been in the industry for a while are often frustrated that we don't seem to be taken seriously. But realistically, for us, good will look like the ability to leverage the real capabilities of the industry. And we've got a bit of an overarching statement where we talk about what will good look like: a professional and well-trained workforce that is respected for the important frontline role they perform in safeguarding the community, where nationally consistent licensing and professional standards are enforced and supported, and where there's a strong culture of compliance and governance with technological innovation and adaptability embraced. Now, a lot of that is easy to say. To achieve that will take significant work. And I think one of the things we have found is it's not just reliant on the provider companies, whichever specialization you may fit into, whether you are an electronic security business, an access control business, a guarding business, or even if you're in the cybersecurity field, it's not just going to be up to us who provide. There are certainly things we need to do, but it's also going to be a requirement for us to look at other stakeholders. So we will not get a high-performing, professionalized, robust security industry unless regulation, national consistency, and some of these things change. So we need the regulators to be involved. We need government to be involved. We also need clients and consumers to be involved, because if clients and consumers aren't applying the correct standards, moving with the times, and supporting the correct pay structures, etc., it will be a little bit more difficult to achieve our full potential. And ultimately, we see that ASIAL has the ability to be the enabler and the glue between these three structures: the providers, the users, the regulators, and government. And if we can get all of those acting towards a common objective, we should see our industry improve, grow, and take its rightful place as a serious contributor to the larger economy in Australia and a serious stakeholder in providing national security for all Australians. We look forward to you receiving the report and presenting it to you, hopefully face-to-face in November at the conference. But when the report does come out, feel free to reach out to anybody at ASIAL or myself and Dr. Paul Johnston if you'd like to know more. Thanks for listening to this brief update, and look forward to seeing you all face-to-face, hopefully soon.
Thank you, Gav. I am sure we will see that Security 2025 initiative be the benchmark for the direction of our industry. I would like to now introduce Brian DeCaries, ASIAL's Chief Executive Officer, to provide a security industry update and also to give insight into the 2021 ASIAL annual report.
Thanks for your participation at this ASIAL industry briefing. It's good to catch up with everybody again, even though it's in a virtual capacity. The past 18 months has been a difficult time for all of us, and we've all had to find ways to do things a little bit differently, but pleasingly, the industry has responded very effectively and innovatively in responding to the changing needs of customers. what I'd like to do today is run through a few issues and updates that may be of interest to members. And I'll make a start now with an update on the annual report that we've just released. As you know, the last year has been a little bit difficult. We've had to cancel a number of industry events due to the COVID crisis, but pleasingly, despite all that, the association has actually had a very sound performance over the last year. The annual report is now available to members to have a look at, but I thought I'd just run through a few highlights of the last year. As you'll see in the report, membership over the last year has actually grown by 4.25%. So we're now up to just under 2,750 members. We've also seen member engagement rise across a number of different areas, including access to documents that people have been downloading over the last year. People have been using the website, and we've also had more regular communication with members, obviously during the COVID period, with over 1.9 million email communications and close to 300,000 emails and phone interactions with members. We've also seen an increase in the reach, or the media reach, that we've had over the last year, with a growing number of media mentions and a much enlarged total audience reach of some of the activities we've done. So again, if you read through the report, you'll see some of the activities we've done over the last year in terms of some of the media, including things like the 7:30 report and a whole range of different publications. So it's certainly an area that we've invested more resources in over the last year, with the appointment of an industry affairs officer to reach out and engage in a greater capacity with the general media. When you look at the performance at the end of the day, we made an operating surplus of 110,000, and with the revaluation of the ASIAL house, we've seen a much stronger return for the year. But all in all, the association has performed very, very well and is in a sound position. So please, if you can take the time, the annual report is available to have a look at. Just a few other things I'd like to touch on. The Security 2025 report, which will be out very soon. I would urge you all to have a look at that report. It will be available free to members, and it will include some comprehensive information about the state of the industry and where it's headed. So please look out for that report, which will be circulated to members very, very soon. Another area that we've been obviously encouraging members to do is to get their staff vaccinated. We made available to members a range of resources. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, I would encourage you to do so. The association position is that we would want members to look at the different opportunities they have to encourage their staff to get vaccinated. So again, please use those resources, which are available on the ASIAL member website. Another area that I'd just like to recognize is also the efforts of all those in the industry, both in terms of providers, users, and regulators, in promoting International Security Officer Day. The event reached a potential audience of over 30 million, including articles in the publications listed on the screen, as well as tweets, social media posts by regulators, providers, customers, clients. The event was a great success. We will be doing the day again next year. So if you didn't get involved this year, please reach out to us to find out how you can participate. We will be sending out collateral probably earlier in the new year, but if you want to be involved, we encourage you to do so. Another activity which is coming up is the Australian Security Industry Awards. This year it will be a virtual awards, which will be announced on the 27th of October. It will be free to participate, but to register, you just have to go to the ASIAL website. And I again encourage you all to participate in that one. It's an important event for the industry, and it's important to celebrate all that's good about our industry and the excellence in our industry. Also, recently, the Australian Electoral Commission completed the ASIAL board elections, which were delayed due to COVID. As you'll see, a new board of directors has now been elected with John Gillell and as president, and Rachel Saunders as vice president, and the other directors are listed on the screen. The board has already got started in terms of the important work it has ahead, and you'll hear more from them over the coming months. Another area of concern for members has been the availability and affordability of insurance cover. In June, ASIAL submitted a paper to the Insurance Council of Australia, which is doing a review of this very issue. And we have been invited to participate with other key stakeholders to try and explore some of the opportunities available to make the cost impost of insurance as low as possible. And we will be in touch with members in due course once we have some responses on that one. As you would have heard earlier from Cara Pritchard, there are a range of government employer incentives for the technical security sector. So please follow up on the points that Cara addressed earlier, because this is an important initiative, and it's one of the areas that the industry needs to focus on, is upskilling staff, not just in the technical sector, but across all sectors of the industry. So please take advantage of those opportunities. Recently, you would have seen we circulated to member the revised monitoring centre standard, which is now closed. We're now going through the comments for that standard, and a final draft will be hopefully available by the end of the year. There's also a draft for public comment at the moment for security detection dogs. So if you have any views or you want to have some feedback on that, please go to the ASIAL website. You'll find a link to the draft standard where you can actually provide your feedback to that. And then finally, the Security Industry podcasts, we're now up to, I think the next one will be the 53rd podcast. The whole library is available, but if you haven't listened to some of them, please take the opportunity to go to the ASIAL website and download the podcast. Thank you all for your attendance this morning. I look forward to catching up with you all face-to-face in the not too distant future.
Thank you, Brian. Great contribution. I would now like to introduce Peter Johnson, ASIAL's Compliance and Regulatory Affairs Advisor, to provide a compliance update.
Thank you, Rob. I'll take the opportunity to provide a short update on compliance and some industry matters. In Western Australia as an industry, we certainly have been luckier than other jurisdictions, particularly Victoria and now New South Wales. However, it does not exempt us from compliance with the requirements of COVID safe plans, contact registers, or the use of the Safe WA app, and the need to continue to monitor the business and community activity, health and emergency declarations. We encourage all to maintain currency of your COVID requirements. Western Australia continues to extend declarations of state of emergency and public health emergency declarations. Although now in a good position, we must be mindful of the change in the strategy for COVID management in what we are moving towards a society living with COVID. COVID vaccination continues to be a priority for discussion. In addition to the work Chris Delaney has done with advice and publications available on the ASIAL website, the writing is on the wall that work, access, travel, and freedom of movement in the community will be dependent upon the level of vaccination of a person. Please remember that all of ASIAL publications are not available to the public. Access to many publications can only be viewed if you are logged into the ASIAL member area on our website. The Federal Automatic Mutual Recognition of Occupational Licensing and Registrations, AMR, commenced on 1 July this year. This impacts on individual licence holders only. At this stage, Northern Territory has introduced AMR process that includes security. Victoria, New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory have declared a 12-month delay for the introduction of AMR. All other jurisdictions are required to introduce a legislative process for AMR to apply. The Western Australian Government has published information relating to AMR. However, WAPOL at Licensing Services only maintains the existing process for mutual recognition applications and nothing relating to AMR. So, situation normal in relation to any mutual recognition application, not AMR. ASIAL continues to receive communication relating to performance of WAPOL licensing services, particularly with regards unlicensed security operators in Western Australia. ASIL communicates these situations with licensing services to encourage their investigation and action, although concern remains with a degree of effort in their investigative process and action taken against unlicensed operators. ASIL has communicated concern with licensing services regarding no licence holder company list being available for the public. We recognise that it is not a legislative requirement. However, without public access to such a list, it places the public at risk in dealing with unlicensed companies. Licensing services have indicated that they will reinstate the public company list with a review of their system. No due date has been provided. We will continue to monitor this area. Thanks, Rob, and I'll be happy to assist with questions.
Thanks, Peter. We really appreciate your valuable input. Thank you all to our speakers. We will now have a live Q&A. Please put your questions in via the chat.
We have a few questions that we've got, and one of the one I guess from I think it's more so for Julians Online from Guardhouse, and in relation to the Guardhouse, does it integrate with MyOB, and what packages, other packages does it integrate with? Julian, how are you going there?
Going well, thanks, Peter, and hey everyone. Good to see some familiar faces on the call. So just in regards to that question, Guardhouse absolutely integrates with MyOB. We also integrate with a number of other accounting packages, like Xero, both for invoicing and payroll on both of those systems. And we do an array of other payroll systems as well that we integrate into.
All right, just on that, one of the other areas you mentioned in your presentation that you've got other things coming online. You say towards the end of the year. Now, some of those things are what you've seen in the industry, what we need. So when are they going to come online from a Guardhouse point of view, offering to your clients?
Yeah, cool. So fantastic question. So those key 4 features that we discussed about coming out. So welfare checks and welfare checks and our labour partner sharing, they'll both be released on the 23rd of this month. So we were actually trying to get them out last night, didn't quite make the release, cut 1 or 2 little bugs before it went out. Labour partner sharing, we're most excited about in terms of, as you say, what we've seen in the industry and what we think we need for the industry to assist in businesses operating together. Essentially what it does is it connects up companies that use Guardhouse, but also who share staff in a customer subcontractor relationship. So you can work on one live roster together. So instead of one company building their roster, sending it over to their subcontractor, they build their roster, put it all together, send it back, and then they put it into their system. Essentially, the contract holder allocates the subcontractor to the shifts, and they automatically appear in the subcontractor's Guardhouse account where they can allocate their staff and just push them back all electronically through the system. I think it's going to be a huge time saver, a big efficiency for the industry, especially with the relationship of contract holder to labour providers coming in. So that's going to be awesome. We're anticipating that will be out on the 23rd of this month. The other ones beyond that will probably be in the following fortnight or month after that. So we're just wrapping up those projects so we can anticipate them all within the next 2 to 4 weeks.
All right, Julian, I think we're going to look forward to something like that. And I reflect back on when you first started involved with the security industry and supporting ASIL as well. You've certainly had growth in your offerings, and you seem to be really customising your programs to suit our industry all the time. It seems to be quite good from that point of view.
Yeah, we've we are very dedicated to the Australian security industry. This is our focus. We're trying to develop something that is a unique platform for Australian security businesses that have unique challenges in this market, and we focus all on customer feedback. We're product people, not security people by trade, so we take all the learnings from our customer base, and we're good listeners and we're great product people. So we translate all that fantastic information on what you guys need, and we turn that into what we believe is the market leading offering.
All right. Well, seeing you on a run and you're supporting us, I'll give you this extra time just because you're good.
Yeah.
Work health and safety. How are you're going there with your linkages in your program in supporting workers? Because that's one of the things, the compliance area, that's really hammering our industry all the time. How are you going there in capturing that information and able to support members?
Yeah, cool. So we've got enough customers that are using particularly our incident reporting for work health and safety. measures. So what they'll be doing is building site audits, staffing audit forms in their incident reporting, so that when staff are arriving on site, they can complete a site audit and ensure that everything is in place so that the business is providing a safe workplace for that staff member. But also, if there is a problem, they're able to document it and address it with their employer so that it can be addressed as quickly as possible. So that's been a huge thing around work health and safety. That's been a big improvement there. And we're always listening to try and improve that component of the system and what else we can do in that space.
All right, really appreciate it. And we do appreciate your support from Guardhouse in sponsoring our events. It's really good. Now, I'm going to give you a break. And I guess Leanne was one that's come through in relation to Mass National. And I guess people just trying to get their heads around technical training. And I think, Rob, we've talked about this over the years. We're always trying to find technicians in the security industry that'll actually stay with us. And so we've got to get people into the industry. I guess people are asking the training you described and financial support, Leanne, in your presentation. What's the catch for a business?
Yeah, Peter, look, it's a really interesting question. And we always used to get the, it sounds too good to be true when it was $4,000. And now we've got all this extra government funding available and it sounds even better. I think there's no catch really. I mean, people are, when you take on new employees or you have employees in your business, you're always training. So you conduct induction training when they start, you conduct training as they go along their journey with the business. And I mean, with this program, if they put them under a traineeship or an apprenticeship, there can be funding available up to sort of, 28,000 and beyond. So yeah, I don't think there is a catch. Everyone trains their employees. This way you get paid for it.
Yeah. Just in relation to that, but you run out of Victoria, Cara runs out of South Australia. Yeah. So how does Mass National going to help Rob and his team in WA?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got staff on the ground in every state. So we will always say, we'll come out and see people and actually talk them through the process and basically work out some sort of a plan for the business in whichever state they're in. So so you can obviously contact myself or Cara initially, and we can put you in touch with the right people.
In relation to the program, do employers have to pay you as well? What happens there?
Yeah, no, they don't. We're a free service. We're funded by the federal government, basically to promote apprenticeships and traineeships and workforce development. So not only do we come out and talk to the business about what their needs are or the sticking points or their challenges, and sort of trying to develop a plan to overcome those, we also pay all the government incentives as well. So we pay that boosting apprenticeship commencement wage subsidy, we pay the commencements, we pay the completions, etc. So we're a free service to employers, and essentially it's just about helping them as much as possible.
Right. WA is a small place, as we all know. And so therefore, how are you going to, or how does Mass National support the regional areas? How does that work? Because we've also got security, we're everywhere. So West Australia is a big place and you don't always have those services. So how do you go supporting the regions?
Yeah, look, we have to by contract with the government support all areas of each state. So we look after anybody from the top of Western Australia, the bottom Western Australia, and across to, apart from Northern Territory, we do every other state. So right. Yeah, we're happy to do that.
All right. I know we're sometimes always focused on the costs and what have you, but there's always a bucket of money. You're the organisation that'll keep us, if we take on board this process, you're the organisation that'll keep us from getting into trouble. You've got the compliance under control. You'll make sure that we know what we've got to do, what reports we've got to do. So is there I guess, a demand on business? Do you demand much from a business when they take on an apprentice or a trainee?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question, Peter. They essentially, when a person signs up an apprentice or a trainee, the company is basically saying that they'll provide a safe workplace for that person. They'll provide supervision, so they'll have somebody who's capable of supervising that person, and also that they will allow time for that person to actually undertake the training. So so it might be that they're learning something new. It might be, I don't know, that might be a new receptionist and they're doing something with the phone system. So long as they've got time to actually undertake that training, that's what the employer signs off to say that they will do. In terms of the compliance with the subsidies and all that sort of thing, we look after that on behalf of the employer, and we provide advice. So to claim the boosting apprenticeship wage commencement subsidy, for example, an employer will need to provide us with pay slips. So we'll actually work with the employer to say, this is what you need to give us. We'll get that from the employer, and then we can pay the subsidies. So we look after all that compliance, and we provide advice and so on as well.
All right, just in relation to that, Rob's got an employee, casual, within 12 months. Rob's got a permanent within 3 months. We don't employ apprentices in the security industry per se, but trainees can fit into that. So it's anyone in Rob's business that could be the administration training that you talk about. They could be a trainee.
Yes.
One area that has come up in one of our other discussions was that Rob, being a generous sort of person, he pays his people good money. The trainee wages are different. If Rob pays one of his trainees a bit more, because sometimes our techs are quite demanding and hard to get, does that mean it impacts upon what he's entitled to from the government, or that? How does that work?
Great question, actually, because the trainee wages can be quite low. You're right, and same with apprentice wages. But an employer can pay their employee whatever they like, obviously, so long as it meets the award. They can pay above award, that's fine. With the boosting apprenticeship commencement wage subsidy, the employer gets up to $28,000, which is up to half of an apprentice or a trainee's wage. So if they pay more than that, that's fine. They don't get any more than 28,000. But if they're paying less than 56,000, they just get up to half. So depending on what the person's being paid will depend on the wage subsidy.
All right, so that's really good, and I know Rob's sort of he always pays his people well, so long as he can get the benefit, and I think that's the way it goes, and we know Rob's doing that. But the thing being is, that's one of the areas that people really need to speak to you to understand what they're entitled to and what they can achieve for their employees.
Absolutely, Peter. And you're right. You mentioned before about the apprenticeships. There's not as many apprenticeships potentially, all those traditional trade apprenticeships as we think about them in the security industry. So, you know, it's not like a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber, but you might have somebody who does cabling. That's a traineeship. You might have your receptionist, HR, IT, call center. We had one of your members contact us about their contact center or their call center. We've actually spoken to them about their call center employees. It could be HR, it could be finance, and so on. Basically, any job you can think of, there'll be a traineeship or an apprenticeship for. There's over 500 of them. So, yeah,
excellent.
Yeah, we're happy to speak to anybody.
All right, really good, and thank you very much. We only encourage everyone to actually contact you to take advantage of this and get some advantage for our employees and some financial advantage to help us keep these people employed and to bring new people on. There's one area that's come through, and Leanne, thank you very much. One area that this is for Chris, I guess the 25% loading, Chris. If a person is getting the 25% loading as a casual, are they still entitled to any holiday or sick leave pay? What are your thoughts
the way
there, Chris?
the legislation's been written, Peter, by the Fair Work, in the Fair Work Act, if you're a casual and you're receiving a 25% casual loading, and a court of competent jurisdiction at some point in the future determines that you're a full-time or a part-time employee, the employer will be able to set off the 25% loading against any accruals that might occur. So, in other words, they've got rid of the double dip. It's not going to happen. You're safe, but you really do need to have those contracts of employment in place.
All right. Excellent. All right. Now, actually, Julian, there's one that's come through. Guardhouse, cloud and mobile apps. How do you, what are your offerings there in your system support?
Absolutely. So Guardhouse is 100% cloud-based. So it's accessible on any device with an internet connection anywhere in the world. All the data is stored in Australia. So there's obviously some security elements to that. In terms of mobile apps, we've got a mobile app for both Android and iOS devices, and also some specific time clock devices for iPad and Android tablet devices as well. So they're all accessible. We just need an internet connection and you're good to go. You can use it from anywhere.
All right. Excellent. Thanks very much. Any other questions? Throw them in the chat box. And we have There's another one with regard to casual conversion. If a casual employee refuses a permanent position offer, but an employer would like the position to be a permanent, what possible outcomes does the employer have? There's one for you, Chris. What have we got there for us?
Quite an interesting question. It's almost how long is a piece of string? Look, first of all, that long. First of all, if you offer somebody permanency and they reject it, you should have that in writing some way or other. And it should be understood in the offer what the person will miss out on if they reject it. So, for instance, I'm going to reject this because I want the 25% loading and I'm not interested in annual leave and sick leave and so on. That's fine. So, provided that it's an informed decision of the employee. Now, if you want that job to be a full-time job, the casual ought to also know that you've got no obligation to continue providing full-time work if they don't want it. So you might stop using the casual and put on a full-time employee. But before you do anything like that, it's always worth giving me a call, talking it through so that we can look at all of the subtle little issues that might be underlying all of that.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Chris. Now, just drawing to a close, just one of the things when Brian was talking about, and people have referenced the show in November, the Security 2021, that's now going virtual as well. The conference will go virtual and also the exhibition will go virtual. Diversified announced that yesterday. So that'll be coming out. You'll start to see those. I guess it's a sign of the times. Western Australia, as I said, been extremely lucky, well managed, border control. You're big enough and you've only got those main entrances from a land border, but you've got a risk. Hopefully you don't get impacted like we all have in the eastern states. In Victoria, we've got some changes tonight, regional opening up a little bit. In New South Wales, just announced, New South Wales on Saturday will open up regional. Those opening ups in the strategy that's now being taken is the risk for COVID to move across is going to be significant. So just encourage everyone to keep on looking at what we can do, should do, and from a compliance point of view, an employer point of view, looking after our staff and looking after ourselves and making sure that when today is Are You OK Day, so make sure you reach out to your employees, to your colleagues, and seeing that we are looking after each other. Very important. Chris used it before. We're in these times. It's absolutely, we're going to move through some tougher times. So it's going to be very important to do that. So thanks. I thank everyone for attending. Guardhouse, Julian and Jack's not with us on the Q&A at the moment, but Julian, thanks very much for Guardhouse. Thanks very much for everyone for attending. From John Gillell, the new ASIAL president, we thank John. As I said, from Jack and Julian, great supporters of ASIAL and ASIAL events from that point of view. Cara and Leanne, and we do appreciate that. Get on board with Maz National. You know, there's money there to support us, our people. So let's get Maz National, make them earn their money and get some people on the, sign them up and make it work for us. I've used traineeships in the past for our industry and they've been very successful. Sometimes our staff may not all qualify, but the only way you'll find out is to speak to Maz National and work it out. Gav Schneider, Gav's doing that big report in relation to that. It's going to be a benchmark for us in the industry for from Security 2025. It's going to show us the direction and hopefully we can all jump on board. Again, Brian, the CEO, brings that together from an industry point of view. And Rob, thanks very much for your support. And in Western Australia, we know you're, from Western Australian point of view, we know that you're a long way away, but you've got exactly the same pressures that everyone else in Australia. Same work pressures, same industrial relations pressures, same competitors. And we have people that work in our industry without licenses. Let's keep the pressure up on the regulator. Let's keep pressure up on the government and get them to do their job, earn the money that they take from us in licensing fees, and hopefully we can get a better industry and a more compliant industry. So thanks everyone, really appreciate it, and please stay safe. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.